Good day, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Paul Rocchio with the International Franchise Association, and yes, that's my pre-pandemic headshot. I'll have to talk to Caitlin about getting that updated. In any event, today's presentation is part of IFA's 2021 Economic Outlook webinar series. It's based around the newly released 2021 Economic Outlook on Franchising Report. And today we're going to focus on the quick service restaurant sector. Two quick notes before I turn things over to Colin, who is the founder and CEO of Sauce and was gracious enough to sponsor today's webinar. But first thing, we are recording today's webinar, and it will be made available later this evening to IFA members on community.franchise.org. And if you do have any questions, please use the question box, and the panelists will address the questions towards the end of today's webinar. Before we get started here, I'd like to, again, thank our sponsor, Sauce, for their support. And I'd like to introduce Colin Webb, founder and CEO, and also an MIT alum. We just had a nice chat about that. And he's going to give us a little bit more information on Sauce. So Colin, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Paul. And this is extremely exciting. I think the IFA and the community are one of the most inspiring communities of hardworking entrepreneurs, and we'd love to be able to help. And so Sauce is extremely glad to sponsor this event. I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a brief background. As Paul mentioned, our team is founded out of MIT engineers who've worked previously in restaurants. We've had friends and family members start brick and mortar businesses. We know how challenging it is to make these businesses successful, but we also know that there's a lot that you can do with data and technology to make that business success story a lot more obtainable. And so Sauce is essentially the easiest way that restaurants can get outsized increases to revenue up to 40%, essentially without doing any work at all. We plug into your existing online ordering platforms and give restaurateurs the ability to bring on expertise from data scientists, from MIT engineers, from being able to understand how customers are ordering, what's going on in the markets around your restaurant, and automatically update and optimize your pricing of your menu items so that you don't have to worry about that, and you can get increases to revenues and overall customer retention and automatically growing that brand. And so if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me at the information below. Our website is saucepricing.com. Colin at Sauce Pricing is my email address. Feel free to reach out. We integrate with your existing delivery platforms and can get set up in just 3 minutes. So excited for this event, excited for every one of our panelists, and I will kick it back to Paul. Thank you.
Awesome, Colin. Thanks so much. And again, thanks for sponsoring today's webinar. So today's purpose is to give you all an overview of the report findings specifically for the quick service restaurant sector. And then, you're going to hear from your peers within this sector on where they see the franchising economy going. For a high-level overview of the full report, you can view the recording of our May 18th series kickoff webinar at community.franchise.org. But here are a few key points to note from the FranData's findings. So FranData predicts that by year end, franchising will have recovered to nearly 2019 levels in most metrics: business growth, employment, economic outlook, and contribution to GDP. And franchising is expected to experience the highest upswing of franchise sales since the last recession this year as well. You know, that's just very, very powerful and insightful information, and we're all excited about that. Specifically for the QSR sector, the QSR sector is faring better than the full service restaurants over the past year. This sector is predicted to keep growing and expanding, with franchise establishments expecting to grow by 4.1% in 2021 to a little over 191 establishments. So that's pretty powerful. And then also franchise employment in this sector is also projected to increase to a total of nearly 3.8 million employees, adding more than 241,000 jobs this year at a growth rate of 6.8%. Again, powerful. And then finally, this sector is expected to increase their economic output by 10% over 2020 numbers to a total of $265 billion. So I think you could all agree with me and with Fran Data that these are great predictions for the sector, and there's a lot to work towards. So on that note, I'd like to introduce this Rockstar panel in the quick service restaurant professional space, if you will, who have kindly joined us today to talk a little bit more about their perspectives on the franchise economy and as a whole within this sector. So today we have my good friend Bill DiPaolo, COO of Ballard Brands, and then our esteemed Claudia San Pedro, head of limited services category and brand president of Sonic, and then also good friend Charles Watson, CEO of Tropical Smoothie Cafe. So all of you, thank you for joining us today. And on that note, I have the pleasure and would like to turn things over to Claudia, who is going to kind of moderate the discussion today. So Claudia, please take it away, and thank you all.
Thank you, Paul. And another big thank you to Colin Webb with Sauce Pricing for sponsoring this event, and for the International Franchise Association, who champions for all entrepreneurs, whether they're small mom and pop or large brands like ourselves. So as you know, we're here today to talk about the economic outlook and what are the implications for the quick service restaurant industry. As Paul mentioned, as you look at the leading indicators for the economy and the economic outlook for 2021, all roads look green and very, very positive. So as we think about that, I'm going to turn it over to Charles first, and then Bill to talk a little bit about, from your various perspectives, how you see the economic outlook impacting the quick service restaurant industry and your specific brand.
Well, thank you, Claudia. It's a pleasure to be here. I am not an economist or a finance expert, but I play one on this webinar. How about that? We are extremely bullish at Tropical Smoothie Cafe on 2021 and beyond. When we look at the limited service restaurant category and the drag that unfortunately our good friends on the full service restaurant side had, that's actually benefiting quick service restaurants. Obviously, we saw the advent and the importance of the drive-through as well. So I know Claudia and I are trying to see how many more drive-throughs, and her format works great in this environment, but additional drive-throughs and really leaning into convenience, I think, is what's going to be the absolute key. From the overall economics, I think it's going to be a huge franchise development boom, as we talked about, right? Anytime there's a blip and entrepreneurs have the opportunity to manage their own destiny, they certainly usually take advantage of that. We're seeing the beginnings of that in 2021 as well. So, honestly, I think the economic outlook series that you guys have already done really already hit all the main things from Fran Data. But I think we're extremely bullish in quick service restaurants, and I think the additional drive and the additional revenues are going to allow us to continue to innovate, to continue to utilize and implement more technology. I think that's what those extra dollars that are going to be coming in will be going for. We're not without headwinds, and I know we'll get to that later, but we're extremely bullish and have started off the year pretty fast. But it's pretty easy when you were minus 40 this time last year to be up 140 this time this year. So I think the back half of this year will really tell the story, and I'm sure Bill will probably agree. If we could just get people to work in our restaurants, we'd be doing really well. We're worried about the service component, the hospitality component right now with the skeleton crews that most of us in QSR and across the restaurant industry are dealing with.
Well, and I think that's a good segue as Bill addresses this, particularly from your perspective, Bill, as a operator of multiple brands, right, from a large-scale entrepreneur. Clearly, all the economic indicators look green. I'm equally as bullish on the quick service restaurant industry. As we think about derailers or risks, I know for us most recently, we've been talking about this, we're calling it the P-squared issue, people and product, that are adversely impacting the guest experience, that we are trying to optimize and retain those increased visits we had from 2020. But I would love, Bill, for you not only to provide a perspective on that as well, as you have definitely boots on the ground.
Oh, without question. Just a little bit on me. Bill DiPaolo, Chief Operating Officer for Ballard Brands. We're a portfolio of brands, and chief among them is our PJ's Coffee House and our Wow Warian Cafe. And it's funny, when we talk about these things, the dramatic difference in the two units that we have, and where they were positioned really made a big difference as to how well or poorly they fared and are coming out of it. The WOW Cafe units that we have, many of them are located in non-traditional settings in colleges. So as you can imagine, what has happened in the college scenario and sector, it's been pretty devastating. And we saw that actually. We just had, speaking of the two people, the two P's or P squared, people and product, we just had our conversation about product and product movement across that particular brand a couple hours ago. And yeah, there's amazing challenges. Distribution is a tremendous challenge right now. However, still growing, and the beauty of the ability to continue to grow and thrive in this environment, it does speak to that, the ability to have a drive-through. Yes, that makes a big difference, but also the ability to have quick access to the food, whether it is through mobile ordering, whether it's through kiosk ordering. And that speaks a lot to the manpower issue, the human capital issue that we are all facing as brands. Those are the places where we're going and growing. We're finding ways in which we can capitalize on those that we have. And we've taken a spin, instead of looking at it as a way where we're going, well, we don't have as many people, so we're just gonna bring in, automation. It's more around the idea that we're going to make the experience for the people that come to work with us that much more pleasant, that much more enjoyable, that much more someplace where they feel motivated to come and work. And that's been the only saving grace, and that's how our saving grace has been for the PJ's Coffee House of New Orleans brand that we have. We have seen significant double-digit sales growth in that unit, and it's been largely attributed to having drive-throughs, and also largely attributed to our franchisees did an exceptional job at holding people close to the vest and working with them. Being cautious, taking care. I mean, this was a tough environment for an employee to be in. It was scary. There was a lot of uncertainty, and to be able to see our franchisees be who we, for the large part, who we hoped they were, putting their arm around somebody and saying, look, we got this, we're going to be in this together, and side by siding with employees, that is really the large thing that kept us together, and it was outstanding to see.
I think those are great points. From our perspective on the Sonic, for those of you who may not know, we are a drive-in concept in addition to drive-through. And what's interesting for us is, as we look at this past year, we saw tremendous growth in sales, also dealt with lots of challenges with respect to people and product. Bill, to your point, giving us an opportunity to really be grateful for, appreciate, and learn new and different ways to provide a better environment for our employees. We're still figuring that piece out. And as I think about the future of QSR, and you touched upon a few of these themes, I think for us, it's exactly what you said, which is how do we create a great working environment, because that guest experience will not surpass that of an employee's experience. And how do we do that in a way that invests in a smart way? So as an example, I think, and it's interesting as we think about the future of franchising over this next year, I would love to hear your experience in things that you're going to keep, that you learned and did differently during COVID, things that you'll stop as we get out of it. I'll comment on a few. I think for us, seeing the acceleration of adoption of technology as an enabler and improving the experience. And for us, as we're thinking about the future, it's all about, we know that people want human connection and they want an experience. Where do they want that human interaction and experience? And where can we let technology enable that connection and experience as we think about growing our businesses and our brands? So I'll toss it, I'll go. Charles, do you want to tackle that one initially?
Well, you have your P squared, so now I've got to come up with one. I'm going to say the 3 C's for us in terms of what we learned through the pandemic. Number one, as a franchisor, communication. Which ones of us weren't on large franchisee calls once a day, once an hour, once a week at a minimum, right? So the communication, right? And we all, as franchisors, it's how can we better communicate? What are the better channels? text, email, webinar, carrier pigeon, any way we could get the messages out to a group of franchisees that literally have their hair on fire, or there's literally no one in their establishment and they're freaking out for that, right? Number two, I would say, and we learned this in the pandemic, and we've done a good job of it through our history, but community involvement, right? Many of our businesses, especially the three that are on the webinar today, it's a street corner business. Stand on top of your restaurant, look around 3 to 5 miles. That's 97% of your market. Own it. Be a member of the community, churches, hospitals, schools, et cetera. Well, guess what? During the pandemic, for us, we went and gave away 250,000 smoothies. Our franchisees did. We supported them in that financially. And do you think there's nurses and folks at churches that are going to come back to our establishment because we supported them when they were down, much like Bill was saying? Absolutely they will, because that's the heart connection that I think is so important, especially in a community-based business. Because as we all know, right, your PJs or your Tropical Smoothie or your Sonic, really you're Joe Smith and his wife who run that establishment, right? You're in that community. And then number three, Claudia, I'll just call it convenience. Convenience in this day and age, it is a digital arms race. We all have a computer in our pocket. I cannot tell you the shift that we've seen. The one cafe we own out of 950, I'm in quite a bit because I like our food and smoothies. Half of the people walk in and grab their stuff and take it to go. They have ordered ahead. They are stopping in, or they're utilizing our curbside services, or they're using third-party delivery. And so it is absolutely a digital arms race. It's about convenience. It's about being frictionless, especially in the limited service QSR space, right? The reality is, unfortunately, in this, our full service brethren, they're giving us some share right now, right? But Claudia, I think we talked about this. They're letting us borrow it, right? Because Claudia, Bill, and I, we all still want to go down and sit at a nice full service restaurant, et cetera. It's going to be a little while longer before that comes all the way back. So we have to, as they say, make hay while we can and understand how do we keep a certain percentage of those visits. And Claudia, you brought that to my mind from our previous discussion. So I think that's really interesting. So 3 C's for me on that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think yes, and I think to build upon that in terms of as we look at it, I look at the trends that have accelerated as a result of COVID on the technology front. What hasn't changed, though, is people want to get together and they want to eat in restaurants. And so as we come out of COVID, recognizing that, and as we look at the quick service restaurant industry, limited service restaurant industry, we took at least 700 basis points of share from our casual dining siblings, and recognizing and respecting the fact that those people want to be back in restaurants with their families and friends, and that's not our consumer. So how amongst us do we still fight for the right piece of the pie as we go forward? And Bill, I think you were going to touch upon the experience piece a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's what's happened. Certainly, it's also really fun about being on a panel with the two of you is that I've eaten both of your products many, many times. My children absolutely love Sonic. I actually spent a lot of the pandemic trying to lose weight, and I've had plenty of smoothies and love Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Love it. But I think that what I've seen and what we've done as well is we've gone to elevate the experience to where there's mirrors, there's touchstones of still what you might get in a sit-down restaurant. It might not be the full sit-down experience, but in our PJ's cafes, elevating the kind of service that we are able to give when we're able to give it. Obviously, the pandemic created a lot of boundaries, but when you take advantage of some of that space that's given and you use that to elevate the service that you're able to give, there's a lot of retention that we've been able to draw from that. And I think that I think experiences like this, they're very altering. They really significantly alter people's patterns. I compare it to it's the difference between how you change your life by virtue of, I got a paper cut, versus how you change your life by virtue of, I got into a car accident and I broke my leg in 3 places. When you go through something that's superficial, it hurts. It really hurts, but it's quick. You're over it. But when you go through something that deep, and the changes that we all felt in 2020 were that deep, you don't walk the same. You're not in the same patterns. You don't view the world in the same way. You don't see simply walking down the stairs as a normal thing. You now see that as a potential threat. And so when you start looking at the way customers and consumers are looking at our brands, they see going into different areas as different than it used to be, and we have the ability to capitalize on that. And we've been doing just that. We did it better through technology. I used that technology piece to introduce a completely new line of product into our businesses that we never had before. That is an actual touchdown. So PJ's of New Orleans is obviously of New Orleans, and so what goes better with coffee? Beignets. So we couldn't figure out how we were going to fry beignets in our cafes, and we used automated technology to be able to actually do so. We've raised check average by $2.50, increased the sales output by over 25% in locations that adopt it. It's a game changer for us, and it doesn't require any more people. And so we've been able to provide a product to a guest without adding labor piece to it and giving something that is succinctly New Orleans. Those are the ways that we've been really trying to keep the guests that we've been able to get by virtue of some of their changing in habits.
I think that's a great example. And I love the fact that you thought about it in a way that's consistent with who you are as an organization and where you are geographically located to appeal to those guests and do it in a new and different way. And for us at Sonic, what's interesting is if you don't grow up with Sonic drive-in restaurants, you have a somewhat antiquated, called kind of that nostalgia retro view of a drive-in. And when we believe, as you look at our experience, it's incredibly modern and relevant to how people live their lifestyles. What COVID allowed us to do was, to your point, Bill, because people had fundamentally changed the way they live, they now rediscovered what I would call the joy of having an eating experience in the car with your family and having that as your intimate moment, right? And so we were able to drive sales. And as we look at the growth in our business, the percentage of people going to the stalls versus the drive-through maintained. So we saw growth in both as we saw that because people were craving the opportunity not just to get food, but to be able to have that experience of going out in a new and different way. And so whether it was with your kids and what we call picnic in the car, that you're going out, or it's, oh my gosh, we haven't been able to get outside of the house and we want to go out to eat. But for people to experience that, and as we look forward and have had the discussion of retaining consumers, now that they've had a year's worth of that experience, right, and that habit, how we can continue to draw upon that. So I think that's really key.
I have to tell you, you're so spot on with that. We did a lot of volunteering. We were handing out meals for families that had been out of work. And my wife and children, we would all go to the North Shore here in Louisiana, and we'd go to one of the local high schools and give out and distribute product to people for feeding for basic necessities. And what you just said, so it's me, my wife, and my 3 children, 14-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy, and a 9 going on 29-year-old little girl. And all 3 of us, all 5 of us are in the car, and we had the option. There's a McDonald's, there was a Rally's, we had all kinds of options, and we went to the Sonic. It's right near, there's a set of train tracks, and it's right on the opposite side of where McDonald's is. And we went to that Sonic solely because of exactly what you said. The little picnic, the little camp out we could do in the car, and we actually, that became a habit for us. Every time we went there, we went to Sonic because we were able to have what was a dining experience together while not having to go, we didn't have to go into another restaurant, and it was comfortable for us, and we all felt good, and we had our little space, and we could eat and enjoy and be a family and commune. It was a huge deal for us.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, and it's particularly as I look at, us, we're kind of in the center of the country, Central South, and being able to share these experiences with people who are not necessarily used to them is a joy. So we've talked a little bit about the economic outlook. Looks great. The derailers, we've talked about people, staffing, product, the importance of providing a good work environment. I know, Charles, you've had a great experience this past year in terms of franchising sales. And I think one of the questions we want to address is, what does the future look like for new franchisees, new entrepreneurs that want to get into the business? And this time I'm going to let Bill answer this question first, and then we can go to Charles.
I think the future certainly looks bright. So we are currently on pace to double, a little bit more than double the franchise locations that we opened for PJ's in 2020 to 2021. And so much of that is coming from families that are looking to make that change in their life. The break that was made in the layoffs that happened, they have been looking for the way to take control of their lives. And they've been able to find something in what we've been able to bring. And I think that's why franchising in general is succeeding. Look, it speaks tremendously to me, and especially what we get to do, with our coffee shops and our wing places. It speaks to me in that, my father his family was born and raised in Sicily. My mother was born and raised in Guatemala, was not a naturalized citizen here until my grandmother passed away only a few years ago. We're immigrants, and this is a really personal thing for me because I saw what they did to have to support themselves to build wealth and how difficult it truly was, and to see how much easier it's made through a franchise system. When you have people who care about it as much as we do, the three of us on this panel certainly, it makes it that much less scary. There's so much fear involved in trying to do this on your own, and we have the ability to be the strength to the weaknesses that they have to address those fears and lift them up and help them build personal wealth. And it's a great thing.
Absolutely. And I think, to that end, as we talk about this, I think the franchising business model really shined through COVID in so many different ways because of what you just said, Bill. And, as we talk about what drives me and what I'm passionate about is the fact that the restaurant industry and the franchising industry provide not only budding entrepreneurs, it increases their chances of success, but to be able to provide a non-traditional path to success for our employees, for this industry, that you don't have to be of a certain way to see success. And providing those tools as a franchisor. And Charles, now for you, as you think about the franchising sales and the outlook on the industry, love to hear what you saw.
Yeah, so I would say the big macro issue that we've been seeing for a long time with our millennial generation, et cetera, I don't know about you guys, but I've worked at Tropical Smoothie Cafe for 11 years, and people look at me like I have 3 heads because I don't own the company. I'm a hired gun. But they're like, wow, 11 years? Well, I think we grew up with our parents' generation getting the gold watch. So we've gone so far the other way of, oh, wow, you've been there 3 years. Are you bored with it yet? So people, it's transient. Corporate jobs have become transient. And I just finished Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game, and he talks in it about the rise of Milton Friedman, right? And that all the work we do is for the shareholders, et cetera. And that business didn't used to be like that. It was about community, your employees, people, providing a great product and service. And if it's only about the shareholder and you need to drive EBITDA, well, a great way to do that is to release X amount of people and hire on time. And so all these newfangled management and guru things, I think there's some backlash to that. And what we've ended up with is the average lifespan for a person working in a company is whatever it is, 2.7 years. But that's the churn and that's the hiring cost that we all have from a corporate perspective. And I'm getting there. It leads to, my God, I want to control my own destiny. And I don't, it's the same old thing. I want to, I want to do my own thing and be my own boss. As we all know, you're not necessarily 100% your own boss in a franchise. You're not. You got to ride the bicycle the way that we ask you to ride the bicycle, but you have much more freedom to grow, et cetera. And so I think we'll see the commensurate boom that we saw in 08, 09 as people took packages, et cetera. I don't think we're going to fully see it with the sort of artificial stimulus that's going out. That's what's driving a lot of our labor problems, but it's also keeping people in positions that they may want to move on from. And so I think it'll be a bit of an arms race, as it always is in terms of franchise development. But the great brands win, the brands that have great unit level economics. And I would say the brands that have purpose, that are purpose driven. Ours, for instance, is Inspire Better. What is underneath selling food and smoothies? Well, we want to inspire better. And that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but we want to be the change that we all seek, right? And how our franchisees and how our customers experience that and go out into the world with that is really important. So I think that's one thing. We're off to a good start this year, guys. It's the best franchise development year we've ever had. We've sold 117 franchises so far this year. We're on pace to probably sell about 300. Will be the best franchise development year we've ever had. And about 70% of those are coming from existing franchisees, which is the golden goose, right? It's you're doing something right, franchisees are making money, they want more. So we're very happy with that and managing through new blood and existing blood to continue to grow our franchise system in the right way, in a profitable way for our franchisees.
I think that's great. And I think too, hitting upon that theme of, and I'm going to reference, Colin Webb and sauce pricing, but we know that the restaurant industry has been a slow adopter of technology in general. We just haven't had the tools, and we're incredibly fragmented. And as we think about our franchisees and our ability to be able to fulfill their dreams, it's about providing those support services that they may not have access to. And so the ability to incorporate technology and data in a way that can help drive their business. I think, Charles, what you said is also key, which is the purpose. What's your company with a purpose? And as we look at people who want to control their own destiny and fulfill their dreams, how do we as franchisors really look to set that tone and help enable that? I think as we think about derailers, we mentioned again, people and product, do you see any other risks over this next year as we look at our industry, whether they're competitive forces, external, internal? Be curious what your thoughts are on that.
If I were going to say things that I saw as derailers that I thought were on a grand scale for all of us, I certainly think the rise in pessimism is a threat. I think that the brands that stand out are the ones that are able to bring that positivity, that positive message, while still understanding, there's struggles here as a country that we have, and finding ways in which to, Charles, you said it really well, to inspire better by being the change that you seek to see, and being great examples of how relationships and communities make for better communities in general, and that rising tide that does float all boats. It's not just dependent on one brand or one person or one group. There are ways in which we can make effective change that can drive positivity and drive people to see the opportunity, to see the future as, hey, there's something there for me. There's something in it for me. There's a way in which I can take something and make more of it if I put that elbow grease into it. I think that sentiment needs to grow more because it's there. All the ability for us to do it is there. And the more we focus, especially people in our position, the more we focus on ways in which to create more seats at the table, to allow other voices and perspectives in to be able to make things that much better, the better we're going to be. And that's frankly what franchising is. We get into franchising. Yes, of course, we have a blueprint, we have a plan, and I do it all the time when I'm talking to franchisees, like, hey, this is the way this is supposed to go. You got to follow this recipe, you got to do this. And I get it. But we also source a tremendous amount of information from our franchisees. And that wealth of knowledge is the thing that helps us continue to grow, to continue to be relevant to our guests and to our franchisees. So without those perspectives and without creating better and more diverse perspectives, I think we're going to end up dead in the water. And I think the industry doesn't stand the chance that it can stand. So that positivity and fighting that negativity and pessimism and really head on giving the great example of what it is that our industry can be, that's a headwind we need to face head on and win. We need to win there.
My biggest fear, I guess, is really inflation. right? I agree 100% with Bill, and kind of he's at the 30, 50,000 foot, and I agree 100%. It's a bigger issue. It's the country, right? But I'm concerned with inflation. We're talking about your two P's, people and product, right? We're all seeing it from a product perspective. I'm hopeful that it is a blip, that is a 6 to 12 month global supply chain and distribution blip. But I don't know about you. With the minimum wage increasing, not making a political view whether that's good or bad, but it's happening. So in a franchise system, sometimes franchisees can move pretty quickly in terms of going against a negative force on them. And that for us is pricing, right? And so not doing pricing correctly. So I see, Colin, I'm trying to help you out here, buddy. If you don't do pricing correctly and you don't take price, you then lose your value proposition. And I think we have a possibility of ruining the value proposition by brand by being too expensive or not providing the value that our guests are looking for. And that's enormous pressure for a franchisor to be under, because we cannot set prices. We do not set prices. We guide and give thoughts and feedback, et cetera. So we're in the process of doing that and trying to make sure that we take price correctly. All that aside, I keep hearing about there's not going to be inflation, and I keep seeing prices go up. We're in this Goldilocks environment, low interest rates, capital is still available, moderate inflation, all this kind of stuff, which are all things that we've talked about that are great. But I think that's the sneaking suspicion, is what happens to inflation going forward. And I'm just not as confident as some of my friends at the Wall Street Journal and everywhere else are. I see a lot of prices going up, so I'm not sure how that is in inflation. Maybe I missed that day in college.
Well, I think what's difficult, I mean, as I look at the landscape, what's difficult about this is we've been in an incredibly volatile environment for the past year, little more than a year. And as we think about the levers that have been pulled to try and support and provide a safety net, the reality is we still don't know what the long-term impact of that is. And as we seek to provide some support and stability in some fundamental ways, and whether that's in the economic infrastructure, whether it's with low interest rates to provide capital and seed money for businesses to grow, or whether it's to provide money to help people who've lost their jobs, it is that volatility of, we can't control per se the future. And so are you going to see this overcorrection in one way or another? And as you look at, and I'll just comment on pricing for a moment, is the challenge for the restaurant industry is you look at the way we price and what we do. The only lever we have once we take price is discounting, right? Because you don't go back. Whereas grocery stores, they really move with commodity cost pricing. So they have a lot more flexibility on that. And so as we go towards the restaurant industry, is to your point, Charles, particularly for the quick service restaurant industry, we are ideally situated to be relevant on a consistent basis for people of all income levels, because we provide a great, what you get for what you pay is a great value proposition. If that is, if we get that out of equilibrium, the consequences of that, can hurt us over the long term. And I think that's a good call out, because I think as we see all these levers we're pulling to stabilize the economy, I see great data that show jobs are picking up, consumers have money, we're spending more, we can't wait to get out. What does that mean in terms of inflation? So I think that's a good call out, is just having that in the back of our minds.
I agree. Try building anything right now. I mean, try building anything. The cost of wood, the cost of just wood alone, unbelievable. So those things inevitably will affect the overall outcome. And we're starting to certainly see that now. At a certain point, you have to make sense of the model when you look at a sales to investment ratio. You have to be in the right place. And when you start looking at pricing just to build out, go unbelievable. And then the delays that come along with it, whether those delays are due to environmental delays, or they're due to governmental delays, or they're due to human capital delays, but those delays can become exceedingly costly. And so where does that end up? Where do you recoup that? You recoup that at the point of attack, at that tip of the spear, at the register. And it is going to be there, and it is going to be hard. And because price is truly only an issue in the absence of value, but there's got to be some kind of balance to that. And it's not easy.
Well, Bill, I think you pointed out something, we start off talking about pricing from a myopic level of at the cash register, but the pricing issues that all of our independent business people feel, right, in their businesses, whether it's building, whether it's commodity, all of these different ripple effects that we have. If the supply chain issue is temporary, okay, then, we can attack it from one way. But if we don't know, that's a different and a more difficult proposition as we seek to navigate that. I want to make sure we leave. Oh, go ahead, Charles.
I would feel remiss if I didn't bring up one threat, the PRO Act, right? When we talk about joint employer and the PRO Act, when we talk about a threat to franchising as we know it, we have to bring that up, because that, with everything that's going on in the entire stimulus package, et cetera, and IFA is all over this. I've been involved in a few calls. I know you guys have as well. The board is extremely engaged and working very hard to put forward that while the intentions are what they are and they're good for labor and wages, et cetera, the fundamental way that franchising works in terms of independent owners and operators, the PRO Act could literally put that on its head and create a different relationship between franchisor and franchisee that would fundamentally hurt, if not destroy, our model. So I think we have to put that out there as we talk about threats.
Right. You're right.
I think that's a great point, Charles. And I think, what I have discovered being in my world of franchising, I sometimes assume that everyone understands the franchising business model, understands the benefits, and understands that clear line of delineation between independent small business and franchisor. And you are exactly spot on. And I've been astounded that both public policymakers, whether it's at the state or federal level, do not fundamentally understand, respect the franchising business model, what it is, what it provides, and what it is not. So I think that's a great call out as we look at this year. And I think for all of us is, as we speak in the community, as we speak to legislators at the state or federal level, making sure they understand that distinction and that line, and that we respect that. I think we're going to leave some time for questions if there are some out there. So Paul, I believe I'm supposed to turn it over to you to see if there are some questions out there that we can answer.
Yes, and let me just quickly say, I cannot thank you guys enough. That was extremely insightful, and again, just can't thank you enough for your thought leadership. The first question I think I want to try to cover here, and let me quickly say, Charles, thank you for bringing up the PRO Act. That is huge. And then also, I do want to mention, for anybody who has locations in California, there is the Fast Food Accountability and Standards Act. I'm a jack of all trades here at IFA. I just became aware of this earlier this week. But if you do have locations in California, please reach out to me directly, or you can find some information under our public policy section on franchise.org. But my colleague Jeff Hanscom is leading the efforts there, and so again, if you have locations in California, that's something you're going to want to know about. So first question: is there anything new you've implemented within your system that you will stop or continue after you reemerge out of the pandemic? Whoever wants to handle that first.
Of course. So Paul, I'll speak a little bit to that, and I think we alluded to this.
You did a little. You guys did actually.
Yeah, a little bit of use. It's the use of technology. And we've accelerated actually our timelines for how we want to incorporate increased functionality. So just to give you an example, we ended 2009. So we introduced our Order Ahead app in August of 2018. By the end of December of 2019, we were a little bit more than 4% of our total sales coming from that Order Ahead app. We ended 2020 with more than 11% of our sales coming from Order Ahead. And so more than doubled that. And I'm sure, Charles and Bill may have had similar experiences. So as we looked to what are we going to continue and accelerate, it's investments in that digital ecosystem, because it has become, again, a part of the experience. I think as we look to the future and what we're going to stop, I would just mention, and this goes back to our previous discussion, as we look to the experience of the future, it's really understanding what is the experience that we're trying to create and that our guest wants, and where does technology play an integral role in that, and where does human connection play a role, and making sure we don't lose sight of that human connection, because that's the other learning we had in 2020 was that moment when the car hop delivers the food is a point of human connection, and people were craving a smile. Even they can see you smile behind the mask, that friendliness, they were craving that sort of attention.
I would throw in here, because I'm exactly like you, Claudia, on the, we have looked at all the focus is on the guest journey. The guest journey, especially in 2020 and going forward, as our digital share has shifted, ours has shifted just like yours has, I'm sure the same for Bill. So we have to have frictionless throughout, order ahead, curbside, third party, etc. But I have a goofy term that I use. It's called hospitology. And it's the exact same thing that you said, which is technology, 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 hospitality. Face, point of contact, face, etc. And how do you make sure that you can provide technology enabled hospitality? Old school, new school. Those are the two things that I think are incredibly important. And even to your point of the masks, things that may go away. I'd like right now, the jury's still out, I'd like to get the fiberglass stuff down. I'd like to get the masks off. That may be a ways off. But that human interaction piece, I think it's lost right here. I do. And I don't foresee us going down a road of, okay, well, we're just going to wear masks forever. I don't think so. And I think we lose that bit of hospitality, especially Bill, New Orleans guy, right? Hospitality is what it's all about. And when you got this and that, and you're like this, it's difficult to accomplish. So I think that goes in the next 12 months. Yeah, I pray that goes in the next 12 months.
The same exact thing. We're very hopeful that is something that, as the population, gets their minds around the idea of vaccination. I'm very blessed to be able to get my second one this coming up Wednesday, the Pfizer Moderna. So I'm Pfizer BioNTech, whatever that is. Long story short, I don't know, whatever they hit me up with, I'm going to work with it. But I think it is true that we're not meant to do this for the long haul. We want to be with each other. We want to be able to celebrate moments. It is what we do, and not just in the restaurant industry, but in the franchising industry, because there's so many different franchise systems out there. The contact and the ability to relate to, whether you're talking about things like Goddard School, you're talking about Janet King, or what have you, you still need to be able to be interactive. And I think that those things are the things that we're looking forward to having come down and having be out of our way. The barriers we've put, like for instance, getting rid of the condiments area. I look forward to, that's going to be different. It's still going to be different because I think the guest sentiment has changed. But I think we're going to be able to go back to that in a way that guests are going to be more comfortable with. And the thing that we've implemented that we absolutely will be keeping is, again, automation that has helped us expand the brand. The automation on the side of PJ's to be able to grow and thrive with our beignet program has been tremendous. And we're going to still continue to look for ways in which we're able to do just that, to innovate the brand. Because the pressure on unit level economics that is created through some of the precipitous rise, whether that is in commodity pricing, whether that is in labor pricing, whether that is in real estate and retail pricing, those things are never going to change. And so the only thing that we can do is alter the way in which we lose or spend our money, that the precious resource that we're able to bring in, and those will continue to grow.
Excellent. Thank you all. Next question, and you guys may have touched on this as well, but do you have any innovative ways you plan to try to keep the customers you quote unquote borrowed from the full service restaurants? Who would like to start on that one?
I'll take it to start. I think for us, it really came across in day parts. We were a lunch heavy brand, and we saw we lost breakfast and we gained dinner. So where do you think there's a higher check, breakfast or dinner? Yeah. So we really would like to keep some of that, because what we feel is, we've talked about the disruption, right? If you look at Dunkin' right now, rightfully so. Okay, how do we get back in people's drive to work? How are we, that we're built to pull off, right? I'm sure you're doing the same thing, Bill. How do we get back into, as we get back to normal? We've disrupted those habits. How do we get back into those habits? So for us, I think it's a focus on day parts on our offerings, because you know what? You got a shot maybe at a day part or with a product that you wouldn't normally have had. Man, it's time to lean into that. That may be, as Claudia mentioned earlier, that may be continuing to drive it with loyalty or some sort of discounting, that type of thing. But you know, the opportunity is here. This disruption creates opportunity. Everyone in this industry went, oh shoot, with a different word, for about 2 days, and then everybody got to work. This is the hardest working industry out there, right? And so everybody said, all right, this is an opportunity. We're going to get after this. We're going to change. Now that has come all the way through. Times are a little bit better. And it's, what are those things we want to keep? What are those customers we're going to want to keep? I don't envy being in the full service restaurant boat, because we're borrowing them, and we're going to try and keep as many of them as we can. That's the reality of competition.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would agree. We saw quite a bit of growth in the lunch, afternoon, and dinner day part. And as we look at the future of how do we keep those visits, I think what we're looking at is, what was that consumer's need state and how do we continue to fulfill it? So as we look at particularly dinner and meal replacement, what's the new product news? What's the new flavors? What are ways that we can continue to play into that besides just promotions, right? So as we look at product innovation and as we look at people's eating habits, where can we meet them?
Yeah, product innovation is probably where we're going to be spending, and we have been spending a significant amount of our time. And not only innovating into newer products, but innovating in the ways in which we are able to serve them to the guest. You know, there are certainly concepts out there that have proven quite well. They can take the same exact things and package them in different ways and continue to grow and advance their sales and their broad run appeal. And that's some of what we're working with as well. The market share gets lost, obviously, when you stop growing, and the way in which we are going to continue to grow is, you know, through that innovation. But it's always seek to understand. We need to better understand and recognize what our guests are looking for from us. If there's something I want to pick up on and become better at this year, is truly asking the question and seeking to understand, and being better at retaining that knowledge and understanding what it is that they're saying. Sometimes they don't say it; they just say it with their wallet, or they say it with, you know, some other silent communication that we may not pick up on. That's something I look to improve on for our brand to be able to grow.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Next question. With the strong franchisee growth you noted, have you noticed any material changes in the demographics of your new franchisees?
Great question, and I'm happy to answer just from Sonic's perspective.
Thanks, wonderful. Yep.
We are seeing a greater diversity of types of entrepreneurs or business people. So we've always attracted, which is exciting to me, that budding entrepreneur, first generation immigrant who's looking to start their businesses. We continue to attract that prospective franchisee. We're also attracting what I would consider kind of the second generation immigrant franchisee, the more sophisticated. They made their money, they've established a network of restaurants, and now they're ready to grow, and they want to grow with bigger brands. And so we're seeing that phenomenon where we're seeing franchisees that are have laid the groundwork, are a little more sophisticated, and that's exciting to see as well. I would call them kind of they're not the small budding entrepreneur of wanting to open 3 to 5 units, but they're wanting to get in there and either acquire 20 to 40 and start growth from there. And I think it's exciting to see that sort of diversity come into play.
I would say for Tropical Smoothie, we're coming up on our 25th year anniversary, so it's the usual overnight success after 25 years. So we're seeing we're still heavily single unit franchisee, right? So we've got 425 franchisees on 950 locations. That's a lot of franchisees. So we're at that stage in the franchise life cycle where consolidation begins to happen, and most of our new franchisees are actually networking in terms of, hey, I'm having success over here with this brand, and then we move on. And we're just now getting that 5, 10, 15 unit franchisee that also owns 5 Sonics and also owns 10 PJs or whatever it may be. So our unit level economics and our sales to investment ratio is beginning to attract those players, and so that's an exciting thing for us. I would tell you from a diversity perspective, which is obviously incredibly important. We're probably 35 to 38% diverse. We don't ask what your race is on the application because we don't care. We want to get to know you as a person, so we have to kind of take a swag at that. And if you look across all of franchising, you'll see numbers like that. So the positive force that franchising is, both in quick serve restaurants and in everything else in franchising, it provides that, I'm stealing this from Charlie Chase, but it provides that on-ramp to wealth, and that on-ramp to wealth creation that's available to anybody. Red, green, purple, pink, I don't care. Let's go sell some smoothies and inspire better, and let's join the team type of thing. And that is what is so amazing and so American about franchising that I just love.
Yep.
I will say, and I'm just going to add this piece, because the one gap I consistently see in the infrastructure for franchising businesses is for budding entrepreneurs. And whether it's your first time owning a business, and you are that single unit or 3 to 5, at least my experience is that the financial institutions that are willing to take a risk, we don't have enough of those. And as I think about what I would consider some really great success stories, not just among the franchising community, but community banks who have a purpose, Charles, to what you're talking about. They have made it their purpose to build community and to take a chance on budding entrepreneurs. That is one of the gaps that I still think is really lacking as we think about growing a diverse set of entrepreneurs in the restaurant industry, is how do we get our financial institutions willing to partner with us and take that step?
It's an excellent point, and duly noted. And I'll get together with some folks internally, and we'll try to solve that problem. How does that sound?
Right.
Perfect.
Let's bring some financial institutions to the table and have that discussion.
Exactly. I think we have time to squeeze in one more question. Are you forecasting more robust growth in certain geographies? For example, Florida fully open versus California, New York, New Jersey, that still have limitations on capacity?
Definitely, we're Gulf Coast touching states. That's where we're doing very, very well. If it's all the way from Texas all the way through to Florida and Georgia, that's where we're hitting our wheelhouse. And yes, those areas are definitely strong for us, no doubt.
I don't see any different than the macro trend, which is the states that have more welcoming business environments from a taxation perspective, et cetera. We're seeing everyone move from California to Texas, companies, individuals, et cetera. Arizona and Nevada are getting overrun with California. And so I think that trend continues, and most of our development tends to be in those states that are a little bit more business friendly.
And for us, we have an additional thing that works in our favor, strangely enough. So we had this little thing called Katrina that happened to us down here in New Orleans, and that created a significant diaspora of New Orleans natives that went all the way either to Houston or to Georgia, to Atlanta, or to the Panhandle in Florida. And so for us, the touchstone of our brand that is of New Orleans, and the things that we offer that are of New Orleans, and our mission to bring the New Orleans passion for food and lifestyle to the world, that has been a big boon for us and worked very well. We have a lot of recognition there for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, listen, on that note, we're just at the top of the hour. Cannot thank you all enough for your leadership and excellent comments today. Thank you, everybody who participated today. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Claudia, Bill, Charles, again, I cannot I cannot thank you all enough. And also another quick shout out to Colin and Sauce. Cannot thank you guys enough for your, your support for making this presentation and webinar happen today. So listen, if you're looking for additional information on different sectors within the report, the Fran Data report, please be sure to join us for our final spotlight webinar next Tuesday, which is on the full table, full service, full table restaurant sector. So and that will round out our spotlight sector. So I hope you could all join us on Tuesday. And if you did miss any of the past webinars, or if you want to view this webinar again, you could you could view them all on community.franchise.org. So on that note, stay safe, everyone. And I cannot thank you all enough. Claudia, Charles, Bill, wonderful seeing you. Looking forward to seeing you in person, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Bye, Charles. Bye, Bill.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, all.